Welcome to the DevReady Podcast. Joining me on the DevReady Podcast today, I have Stefan Pagacik. Thanks for joining me, Stefan.
Anthony, it's great to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time. It is evening in Boston. I believe
It
that's where you
is.
are. So
It
thank you
is.
for taking the time out of your evening for that. It's a Thursday morning here. So what we'll do, I'll let you introduce yourself and give a little bit of background to everyone, because for those of you that don't know here, I haven't actually met Stefan before this call, so I don't know much about him. So I'm learning along the way. So I'll let you take it away.
Great. Thank you, Anthony. My background, I've had two careers, one in media and entertainment, and the other as a product developer and eventually a senior leader in companies, managing divisions of companies. And I'm right now embarking on an entrepreneurial venture for the first time. So this is quite exciting for me to take my leadership from where was inside corporations into an entrepreneurial venture, and everything that goes with it, which I'm discovering is a whole lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I've really spent my career teaching myself technology. So whenever a technology innovation comes up, I like to immerse myself in it. I like to get to know it. I like to work side by side with developers and have them explain to me sort of how the workflow is going to be accomplished and how the UI UX journey will unfold, for the customer. I spend probably 50% of my time there and 50% of my time talking to the ideal buyer persona, getting their pain points, finding out what their challenges are, and seeing how that translates into their overall technical architecture and a solution that benefits not only their company, their internal stakeholders, but their external stakeholders, and how this will eventually scale the company. So, my background has been media and entertainment, IT consulting, um, product management, leadership within organizations. I started out at Apple and Adobe and transitioned to smaller companies because I like the environment better. A big company is tough when you're dealing with thousands and thousands of employees. You don't really get to know people very well outside of your group. But in smaller companies, you do. You have more of a stake in the success of the company. So that's really what drew me to that. And recently, over the last 17 years, I've been working in sustainability and impact and working on building technology solutions that help with decarbonization, with helping investors, especially young investors, understand how they can put their money to work to make our planet more sustainable. So that's me in a nutshell.
Quite a lot of a varied career there, with a few different
Yeah,
things that
it
take a
is.
common theme there, obviously. What made you step out and start your first entrepreneurial venture now?
Well, over the last 15 years of building tech solutions in the sustainability space, what I learned is that from a sustainability reporting perspective, a lot of CEOs and senior leaders would have the same complaint, Anthony. They would say to me,
Hmm.
Stefan, look, I'm putting in hundreds of thousands of dollars into these reporting solutions, but I have no idea what this is doing to move the needle for my company or to move the needle in an economic way, in a financial way that shows up in terms of our planet, right? In terms of
Hmm.
our community, in terms of, you know, any aspect of personal or professional living. So after hearing like 25 different CEOs and senior leaders say that, I thought, okay, there's got to be a problem here. There's definitely got to be a problem here. And what I discovered, Anthony, was that sustainability reporting takes you 50% of the way there. Think of it as you're running the length of a football pitch,
Yep.
right? And you get halfway there and you stop, and that's all you've got. And you're out of gas, and that's it. So you made it halfway down the pitch, but you haven't finished the journey. And because you haven't finished the journey, a lot of your good intentions around sustainability go unfulfilled.
Hmm.
And so that's the big problem that we're facing as a global economy. We just aren't going the extra 50 yards or however long the pitch is. I'm thinking of an American football field
Yeah,
now and
that's
not an
okay.
Australian pitch. I apologize for that, but I
No,
should
no, not a
know.
problem. We understand the concept.
Um, but um, what I did was I looked at that last 50 yards and I said, what would get the financial markets and companies to agree on decarbonization as a useful exercise, as a useful business initiative, a business strategy that could be folded into their operating and business model? What would do it? And what I came up with was a monetization model of monetizing non-financial factors, which are decarbonization metrics, with financial factors that are used in traditional financial reporting.
Okay.
And so that is how Ampresta was born.
Okay. So it the financial metrics are from the organization
Yes.
measuring the actual results of what they're doing, which the current reporting systems weren't doing, if I'm understanding that
Yes.
correctly.
So there's a firm called Market Grader, and they publish a bunch of financial data points that CFOs use in reporting if they're a U.S. public company or any listed company, on the Australian exchange and in the FTSE, in the U.S. stock market. So Market Grader publishes this data and these metrics. And this data and these metrics are used by asset managers to build products that they market to their wealthy clients, right? One of the asset managers came to me last year and said, look, I can do this for any public company and I can build a pretty solid product and get a good return. But if I try and build a decarbonization ETF, forget it. I have nowhere to start. There
Okay.
is no way I know how to do this that makes any sense. So his challenge to me was, great, okay, so you've heard from these company CEOs. They've told you that the sustainability reporting isn't working. If they want to be included in one of my asset products, you got to figure out a way to marry these sustainability factors, these decarbonization factors, with traditional financial reporting. I'm using Market Grader. You figure out a way to do it. And so that was my impetus. That's what pushed me to do it.
Okay. So there's quite a challenge then to undertake and get that. Is the 17 years experience you had in the space? I mean, obviously that helped you understand and get to where you were. But what's some of the key challenges you had then to build the model?
Well, the first key challenge is I'm not a financial modeler.
Yep,
So
that would be one.
that's a big one. That's a big one. Um, I'm very dangerous when it comes to numbers.
Okay.
So
In a good way or a bad way?
at least the people who are close to me say this. It's like, yeah, you're kind of dangerous. You're like a kid playing with matches. It's kind of dangerous to put numbers in your hands. But what I was able to do was because I do have an MBA, I was able to look at all of the financial factors that US public companies use and then look at how different functional business units report on those factors because that's sort of the glue, Anthony,
Hmm.
if you think about it. If you go into each of the nine functional areas of a business, you can find both the financial factors, but you can also find the non-financial factors. You can find out what they're contributing in terms of decarbonization.
Okay.
So the data it's easier to find the data if you break it down that way.
Hmm.
And in some cases, you're going to find more data in three or four of those functional business units. Like you're not going to find it in HR, you're not going to find it in finance, but you would find it in sales. You would find it in marketing. You would find it in product development. You would find it in logistics. You would find it in IT. So there are departments, there are functional business units there that do provide that kind of data that can be used in terms of that model. Um, what I've been able to do is put together a great team and consult with financial experts and say, am I thinking about this the right way? Am I going? And they said, and pretty much they said, yeah, you are. You just have to work the methodology. You have to crunch. You just have to go through these cycles
Yep.
to where you come out with results that an equity analyst or a CFO is going to look at and say, yeah, that's believable. That I can work with.
Just work through the model and refine.
Yeah, and we tested it last week on some data sets from New York City. And we looked at the borough of Manhattan and we looked at 3 flood zones, um, and the buildings that were involved in those flood zones and how much GHG emissions were being given off. So we got actually core data to use this to put it through the model. And what we came up with is pretty good. It's not quite there yet. It still needs some nuances, but it's damn close. It's damn
Okay.
close. We're a lot further along now than we were 8 months ago. I'll say that.
Oh well. Okay. So was this the first like real world use case?
This was the first real world use case. Yeah, what we did was we felt like we tried it using dummy data when we first started building it last September,
Yep.
and it didn't work. It
Okay.
didn't work. It just completely skewed everything, and we just threw it away. We threw it
It's
all away,
hard
and
to
we said,
generate real fake data.
exactly. Well, not only that, but it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
The output didn't make any sense. So we just said, well, we can't use the dummy data because the model and methodology is choking on it. It's just
Hmm.
not working. So that's when we broke it down and we started to say, okay, what we're going to have to do is take one section of a city and maybe only look at, and in this case, we looked at 4 buildings out of a total of 9. And and so we got very, very focused and we drilled down
Yep.
on that. And now the results are starting to show. So the
Okay.
challenge for us is twofold. One, we have to nuance and get this model and methodology to crank like this. It's got to be like automatic. Um, and two, we have to be able to port it to different industries. So we're starting with real estate now, but we have to sort of tweak it for insurance. We have to tweak it for banking because for insurance, there are property and casualty policies that were written 30, 35 years ago that are obsolete now. They
Yep.
simply can't address the climate risks that are being foisted on a lot of these commercial properties. And two, for the banking industry, and especially for mortgage lenders or for investment banking that is looking to put client money into acquiring properties or emerging properties or retrofits or rebuilds, um, they need a way to gauge the financial outcomes and the financial impact of putting that money in for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. And that's another part of what we're building, um, which won't come out in version 1, but will come out in version 2, which is the predictive analytics that go outwards of, we're hoping, 10 years.
Okay. So that'll be an interesting challenge then to try and predict the adverse weather events that are happening over the next 10 years
No
based on what's
kidding.
happening and
Yeah,
how fast they've been
yeah,
like expediting their the size of damage that gets caused as well as the severity of them because they've been getting worse over years over the last few years anecdotally with what everyone's seen. And then we even get things on the news down here in Australia about the floods in Florida and New York when you get I think it's the hurricanes that come through and you get a lot
yeah,
of severe flooding and then
yeah,
the really bad winter storms where the city gets locked down because there's too much storm where you get those polar vortexes.
yeah. No, it's really rough right now. It's really rough, and it's only going to get worse. And we're just talking about, hurricanes and extremely strong storm systems. But what's going on right now that people don't see and understand are the changes in the current. that are going up through the Gulf Stream, up through the North Atlantic. This chain, it's like a chain. It's like one of those continuous loop chain
Yep.
loops that go
Because
around
the
and
water
around,
feeds up, the Gulf Stream goes up along the coast, then circles around, then goes back in. It's
circles
like a
around and
giant
comes back.
loop.
Right,
Yeah,
right in that loop. Because of the changes in water temperature that are happening, that chain is stretching now. It's getting near breaking point. If that breaks, we are in for some horrific changes. I
yep,
mean, I don't think I know our model and methodology couldn't predict what that looks
yep.
like because the scientists don't know.
Because
We
that's
just
meant
don't
to,
know.
that reduces then the warm air and the warm water currents coming up, which
Exactly.
brings warm air, so it'll be more colder. My very loose understanding about how much I can remember from documentaries that I've seen, because then it
Yeah,
reduces the
well, I mean, the
temperature in the northern
colder,
hemisphere or the north
right,
of the North America.
right. And what happens is that as that conveyor belt breaks, okay, what you have is all that cold water rushing back down, and
Hmm.
that's just going to disrupt everything. That's
Yep,
going to create a huge amount of chaos. It's going to create incredible sea level rise, which is going to affect all of the Northeast coastline. And we're talking millions of dollars in losses that will happen because of that.
right.
So there is really a severe impact that will come out of this. And our hope is that by focusing on the financial aspect of it and
Hmm.
the financial impact, we will get the attention of the right people who write the checks and who know how to move money in the right direction.
Yep.
And to say, look, we're focusing on physical assets here because they are the ones that are at great risk right now.
Hmm.
If you're investing in this, if you own an asset like this, you need to be concerned.
I can see a version of this being used by insurance companies as well, then,
Yeah,
for insurance purposes, especially in the flood prone areas, but then bushfire or fire prone areas as well.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
there'd
I
be a
mean,
huge use case down here in Australia as well, because we have all of those issues as well. That globally, it happens everywhere.
I know. I know. I mean, my heart breaks for you guys in terms of the Great Barrier Reef and the coastline and I just with the wildfires and everything that's going on. I mean, you're kind of a smaller version of a larger problem that's could hit us here in the States, but as well it could engulf your coastline, which is beautiful, right? it's
Yep.
it's just transcendent, and there's just a lot of beautiful property, and it will threaten wildlife, it will threaten human life. The costs are incalculable. They really
Yeah,
are.
they are. They truly are. So, just going back sort of now to the business side and the tech side. So, over that career you've had, what are some of sort of the key things that you've brought into this venture now? Whether it's focusing on the outcomes or how to deliver the solution or the approach to build it.
Well, I think the first thing that and the greatest thing that I've been able to bring in to this venture is a number of years of experience working to build divisions, build product, ship product, define market, define the problem, define the buyer persona, right? And to get to know and work with developers.
Yep.
I've hired developers, I've worked side by side with them, um, and it's just a real joy for me. I get turned on by this stuff. It's exciting, and so I can be a really good friend to developers, and I can be a really good friend to the market. And I think that serves me very well in this role as CEO and co-founder because I can talk to both and I can articulate what's needed and find that common ground. So I think those experience from my corporate life. I've also learned what not to do as a leader because I've seen bad leadership,
Yep.
and I'm really trying very hard to shape Ampresta and its culture in such a way that we do it differently. It's Apple had that great phrase, think different. well, we're going to do it differently. That's sort
Okay.
of our approach is we're going to do it differently. We're not going to be the traditional startup, the traditional emerging venture. Our culture is going to be very different. It's not going to play well to some venture capitalists. They're not going to appreciate it. Um, and that's too bad.
Yeah.
I don't care because I've seen, look, Anthony, I've been part of three M&A events. Two
Hmm.
of them went horribly south, where hundreds of millions of dollars were lost.
Yep.
So I have seen the dark side of throwing money carelessly at ventures that were not ready for that money, didn't understand what they needed to do to make the valuation work that the
Okay.
VCs put on it, which was onerous. It was both onerous and unrealistic. And
That's generally the case when you get VC money in.
yeah,
There's some very high
yeah.
expectations that you're always chasing a certain KPI, which is most of the time very unattainable.
It is unattainable, and especially now, from a development standpoint, we're working with AI, we're working with agentic AI, we're working with technologies that are even accelerating Gordon Moore's law, right?
Yep.
It's just blown a hole through Moore's law, as far as
Hmm.
I'm concerned. And so the investors seeing that, what they do is they project in their minds, oh, well, of course, if AI can do this in just a few seconds or a few minutes, then, you know, these guys ought to be leading the market in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, it's
And
still a
that's
business that
just
has to
not
operate though.
realistic, right? It's not realistic.
And the software is just one part, but then writing good software and maintaining it and having it commercialized, again,
Right.
different thing altogether. And then the business still has to operate, still has to have a brand, still has to have a presence, still has to build customers and build trust and relationships. Just
Yep.
because the software gets built, the VCs should know it better than anyone. You don't build it and they come. That doesn't happen.
I just earlier today did a I'm a an executive coach for a pitch competition that's happening in the Midwest here in the United States, and so I met with one of the companies that wants to pitch and has been
Mhm.
accepted into the competition. The company is being run by scientists and engineers. So guess what the big problem is?
The science engineering problem.
um, no, it's the science they have down
Okay.
and the engineering they understand. They just have no way to communicate it.
Yeah, if they're in that space generally, then yeah, they're very technical, specs, data driven.
Totally.
Yep.
I mean, you should have seen the diagrams. They were like your eyeballs would hurt.
Yep.
But I said to them, how are you going to explain this to someone who doesn't have this kind of background and who's going to look at that chart? They're going to look at those slides and go, what in the hell are you building here? What is this?
Yep.
Like,
What
I
does
don't
it
get
mean?
it. Right? So, and that's really kind of that's a fatal flaw for entrepreneurs who fall in love with their product and think everyone is going to fall in love with their product because they did, you
Yep.
know? And that's not reality. That is not reality. Reality is you have to go out and meet these people where they are, what they are currently wrestling with, and most importantly, what their fears are. You need to get to their fears. If you don't understand the customer's fear, you will never get that customer to sign on the bottom line. So
Yep.
you must ameliorate the fear. You've got to be able to go in there and remove it. Just absolutely lock, stock, and barrel, remove the fear, get them to absolutely feel like they're holding your solution in their hands and they're going, wow, it's Christmas. This is great. That's where you have to go. When you get there, you're all set. But the journey there is hard. It's hard and it takes work and it takes commitment.
Yep. It's never an easy path. Everyone thinks there's an overnight success and it just happens, but they don't see
Yeah.
the build up of years of nights and days toiling away at something trying to get it there. But then touching on sort of that issue, so the engineers and scientists, that's something
Yeah.
that we've seen a lot with startups, I think like the general age of a startup founder is 42 or 44 or something like that of a successful one. But
Something like that. Yeah.
in saying that, that means they've had a career in corporate. So those engineers and scientists will be, I don't know what sort of engineers they are, but they're on the tools being engineers, planning and documenting things and working at calculations. The scientists will be researching and doing things, but they're very pigeonholed then in their skill set because they've gone down a certain path, they've excelled and they've gone down those points, and then they've seen a problem that you're trying to solve in the market. Then they're like, all right, let's take this to market, but they haven't got any of those other soft skills that are needed to then run a business which they probably might not have been exposed to any of that part of the business they're in. And then being there like the
Exactly.
sales and marketing person and having that experience to be able to talk to people.
Anthony, you just nailed it. You just nailed it right there. The ability to engage another person is critical when you are trying to get them excited about your idea, about your venture, about your solution. And if you get too technical about it, if you get, if you can't paint them a picture of what this solution is going to mean to a large swath of people, they're not going to care. They're going to
Yeah.
forget about you 5 seconds after they walk away. They're just going to forget about you.
You have to take them on a story and explain
Yeah.
start to finish, but
Yeah.
in a way where they understand. You're not focusing on technical specs. That only matters to a very, very select few people.
Yeah. No, I mean, I always tell people, I say, I use the idea of the pitch, right? So you're running on the pitch and you get to the 50 and you collapse and you go, this is as far as I can go. And what we say is, no, there is a way to go further. We can carry you across the goal line, and we can, in fact, turn around $1 trillion problem and make it so that future generations can live on this planet, work on this planet, and be the sort of the next evolution of what our society looks like. That's our aim. That's our goal.
And that's a very noble goal. And if you've got the path to get there and model it, and you've got some experience, and you can probably move very, very fast towards that objective as well. But
We can.
how do you see
We can.
things changing, not just in probably the environmental space, but now that you're seeing AI come in, because that's introducing different kinds of challenges, and I'm not sure how that affects the vision that you have with it's the ability to code faster, but then that is also going to bring in potential environmental issues with the amount of water that has to go through a data center. When someone says draft me an email, I think it's like
Right.
11 liters of water gets used and probably 100 trees get burnt down in a forest somewhere just to process that.
It's the two things that friends of mine have said to me when they hear the pitch for Ampresta. The two things they say is, um, okay, so you're going to build this thing, and it's going to um, crunch all of these numbers, huge amounts of data for all these companies in the financial markets. Isn't the processing power going to basically defeat the fact that you're trying to decarbonize here? Like, hello. Fortunately, fortunately, I have a good friend who's Australian, who's working with a group that I'm actually going to be a part of, and they've come up with a solution for data center energy consumption and water consumption, which hopefully will be groundbreaking. And um, if this works, it's the model that we'll use for all of our computing, power. So our goal actually is to test this with the data center that they're building, which they're calling it the first sustainable data center. It might sound like an oxymoron
No,
today, but
I think I may have heard about this company. If I've got my head right, there is a startup in Australia that is doing something there, and they've got something special happening, but no one knows too much about it yet.
yeah, you don't know too much about it yet.
Yet,
That's intentional.
by design, yes.
It's by design because it is Australian based, um, and I'm very proud of that fact, by the way. Um, but if this works, it will serve as a model for future development, which is great. And certainly we want to be in the forefront of that because what we're building, we think is pretty unique. And will AI have a role? Absolutely, it will have a role. But side by side with that, we're essentially going to eat our own cooking, as it
Hmm.
were, because we're going to test our model and methodology to some extent on ourselves. Now, we can't necessarily do it in ways that would produce the exact amount that we're producing in terms of GHG emissions, I don't think.
Hmm.
However, there are ways to monitor it, there are ways to look at it, and we are going to apply it to ourselves because we would be doing every one of our customers a disservice if we just said, "Well, buy our solution because this is going to help you decarbonize and you'll be fine." And somebody's going to say, "Really? This seems to be adding more, not less. Like, how am I doing this?" So what we're doing is we are making sure that the solution can be tailored so it can run sustainably. But we're not there yet. We're not.
And that
We're not
aligns
there
with your
yet.
direction and your vision.
Yeah,
So being
yeah.
able to eat your own cooking is something you need to do, be able to improve the model as well and continually iterate upon it.
Well, look, as a leader, as an individual, I'm transparent. I stand up and I say, I'm happy to say I screwed up. I own this, right? I own it. So if this is producing more GHG than it should, I'm going to be the first one to stand up and say, okay, you know what? We got to do a better job. That's all. We just have to
Yeah.
do a better job, and we will.
And that's what you need to do, and that's what separates the good leaders from the mediocre ones or the bad ones.
Yeah, you hope. You hope.
You do. So
Yeah,
along this short journey you've had in Presta, is that what it was called? Sorry, I think I got the name wrong.
Ampresta, AM.
Ampresta,
Yeah.
Ampresta. What's one of the key things that you've taken to help you get to where you are? Just for those listening, before we wrap up, like one of the key guiding principles that you're following.
Well, the key guiding principle, my North Star, is always the integrity that I have for myself and the integrity that I have with my team and anyone that is connected with anything that I'm doing, but in particular with Ampresta. I'm really blessed, Anthony, to be surrounded by some amazing individuals, either as advisors, as team members, as just people who are on the sidelines, but they want to see us succeed, right? So they're doing everything they can, and we're blessed by that. But that only works if my integrity to myself, and I ask myself this every day. I asked it today. I said, am I being out of integrity with myself right now? Like, what is my expectation for this demo? What is my expectation when we go to this pilot and this pilot and that? Am I selling a bill of goods or am I selling something real? And so I'm constantly sussing and parsing that out and saying, where's the real motivation? What is the real why behind this? That's my North Star.
And having that and believing it and then sticking to it is going to make all the difference for those listening out there as well, especially if that is how you want to follow everything that you're doing and have
Yeah.
that integrity there, then you need to stick to it. Otherwise, it defeats the whole purpose of the integrity in general.
I sent an email to my team tonight and I said, look, we're on the cusp of doing 2 or 3 huge projects. But let me tell you that the ramifications of this will be felt for years. And we only have one bite at the apple. So we got to get this right. And here's what has to happen in order for us. Like we have a 30-day window
Hmm.
for this Australian venture, to get this right. We have got major presentations over the summer, and then there's a drop dead start in September. We got to be ready. So tonight I sent to my team and I said, this is it. And we need to look in the mirror and decide, are we ready for this? Do we believe in it? Are we ready to go just through a brick wall to get this done? And I did that because I want them to truly look in the mirror and ask themselves that question, because we've reached that pivotal moment. And this is where a startup can be made or it can be broken.
Yeah, and it's that inflection point where do you stick to what you believe in and how you get there,
Yep,
or does something change and then that what bite of the apple you might lose it.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I wish you the best of luck moving forward in that venture, and hopefully that drop dead start date in September is you're ready to go and the team's all prepared and there's no issues. If anyone wants to find out more about you and Ampresta and what you're doing, how can they do that?
We're going to launch our landing site in a couple of weeks. We created a really what I thought is a very moving video that's narrated by the entire team, and it shows it's a kind of a kaleidoscope of who we are, what our values are. It's not a pitch deck. In other words, Anthony, it's just a kaleidoscope. The landing page and website should be live in 2 weeks. But if anybody wants to reach out to me, the easiest way to do it is my first name, Stefan, Stefan, at Ampresta, Ampresta.com. That's the fastest way, and I respond to all of my emails. I have a 24-hour rule where I get back to everybody within 24 hours. So if you reach out to me, happy to reach back to you, and love to pick up a conversation and share more about our story and hear
No problem.
yours.
And we'll add your email to the show notes, and by the time this episode's released, we'll put your website there as well so that people can get to that. Should be done
That
by,
would be
by
great.
then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, once again, thank you for taking the time and out of your evening over there in America and having a chat with me. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure is all mine, Anthony. Thank you so much.
Thank you.